All right, it's 6 o'clock. Let's call the September Alameda County Water District Board meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Directors Akbari,
Here.
Gunther,
Here.
Sethy,
Here.
Weed,
Here. Actually, I'm attending
Yeah.
via Zoom. I think I need to make a short statement. Under the provisions of the remote attendance, I was attending through today a conference of the Smart Water Summit in southern Florida near Fort Myers. And we'll be attending this meeting on remotely as a panelist. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Reed. Just to clarify, you're traveling. This conference is related to official district business. And if you can let us know if there's anybody in the room with you that's over 18 years old.
Not in the immediate room, no.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Which conference is that again?
The Smart Water Summit.
So, Mr. Miyagi, as a clarification, it's under 18, right? Or is it over 18?
It's over 18.
Over, okay.
Over
We have to
18.
protect ourselves
And there's
from
nobody in the
liability.
room, so that's fine. And it's travel on business. And so we can proceed. This is under AB 2449, just cause exemption.
Perfect,
The
thank you.
Smart Water Summit is on the list of approved board meetings for attendance.
Okay, we're going to continue with roll call. Director Huang,
Here. So with that, let's move on to salute to the flag. Director Gunther, would you do the pleasure? Flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Director Gunther. Next is public comment. Members of the public may address the board on any issue not listed on the agenda which are within the purview of the Alameda County Water District. There'll be a 5-minute limit. Members of the public who wish to address the board on a scheduled agenda item will be given the opportunity to do so. And with that, I do have one speaker's card from Mr. Kelly Abur.
Just want to, I pulled up the bank's pumping plant annual exports, and it's 0 scale, so that it goes from 0 to a whatever, 4 million acre feet a year, whatever it is. And you can see that it's jumping up and down this last 20 years. And what reason I bring this up is because yesterday they published some stuff that said that it looks like the Delta conveyance didn't get on the trailer bill. So that will set it back a little bit. And the Delta conveyance is not designed to smooth this out completely. Maybe it might help smooth it a little bit, but it's not going to fix this thing jumping around a lot. So that means, but just remember, this district doesn't depend on, it's not like some other places that they really, really depend on the state water project for a lot of their water. This district, it depends on 3 things. One of them is the groundwater here, one of them is this, and one of them is the SFPC. And SFPC uses different pipes and it has different sources than this. So, and they have better quality. So it seems like if you're going to be paying a lot of money to try to fix this, it's not going to help this district very much because you don't need this. If this works like this, it's okay. You guys, ACWD will do just fine, even if it keeps going like this. Maybe you need to make some improvements, but it doesn't necessarily have to be here. It can be somewhere else, like more storage or whatever. And just to want to emphasize that the high cost is an object, and if you do this cost is no object and spend a lot of money on trying to fix everything, it's a big mistake.
Thank you, Mr. Abur. With that, is there anybody else that's attending in person that wish to address the board during the public comment period? I'm seeing none. Before we move online, I believe Ms. Hidas has some housekeeping remarks regarding online attendance for us.
I sure do. Thank you very much, President Huang. On behalf of the Alameda County Water District Board of Directors, I would like to welcome the public's participation in this board meeting. My name is Laura Hidas, and I am currently serving as acting general manager in place of Ed Stevenson this evening. Members of the public may participate in this board meeting in person or remotely by either using the Zoom application or by telephone. Any member of the public present in person who wishes to make comments may approach the speaker's podium at the appropriate time. For those participating remotely, note that the meeting agenda, staff reports, and presentation materials for this meeting are all available on the district's website at acwd.org. You may reference the instructions at the top of the agenda for how to participate using the controls in the Zoom app or your dial pad if participating by telephone audio. This board meeting is being recorded and will be made available to the public for future viewing. Again, thank you all for attending, and President Huang, that completes my housekeeping remarks.
All right, with that, do we have any members of public actually attending remotely? No, okay. So with that, then I will close the public comment and let's move on to the consent calendar. Do I have a motion to add any items to the consent calendar?
I'll make the motion to add items 4.1, 4.2, and
Five.
no, wait, sorry.
You're adding,
5.1 through 5.4 to the consent. My apologies.
do I have a second?
I'll second.
Motion, roll call?
Directors Akbari,
Aye.
Gunther,
Aye.
Sethy,
Aye.
Weed,
Aye.
and Huang.
Aye. Do I have a motion to adopt the consent calendar as amended?
I'll move the consent calendar as amended.
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Directors Akbari,
Aye.
Gunther,
Aye.
Sethy,
Aye.
Weed,
Aye.
and Huang.
Aye. With that, the next item would be item 5.5, please.
All right, thank you. Item 5.5 is authorization of purchase order for district hydro excavator, and that item tonight will be covered by our Director of Operations and Maintenance, Mr. Dan Stevenson.
Thank you, Ms. Hidas. Good evening, board, colleagues, and members of the public. For the board's consideration tonight, the authorization of purchase order for a district hydro excavator. So staff has identified the need to add a hydro excavation vehicle to the district's heavy-duty fleet to enhance the safety and efficiency of excavation operations. A hydro excavator uses high-pressure water and a powerful vacuum system to safely and precisely dig holes or trenches while minimizing damage to underground infrastructure. Staff advises that the district purchase an additional hydro excavator for the district's heavy-duty fleet. The district will utilize a competitively bid cooperative agreement awarded by Sourcewell to Pape Machinery for the procurement of the hydro excavator. Adequate funding has been programmed in the budget for this purchase. Board authorization to add new equipment that enhances operational efficiency and employee safety helps the district in achieving its strategic plan goal 1.1, efficiently manage and maintain our infrastructure to ensure reliability. I'd like to add just a couple more points for that for the hydro excavator. The use of the hydro excavator truck is an industry standard for water and wastewater utilities. It's considered a soft dig method, so it significantly minimizes the risk to underground utilities. It also allows for a smaller hole or surface opening, which also minimizes the surface restoration and potential for traffic impacts. And the use of a hydro excavator has environmental benefit, and it helps we're able to prevent silt and mud from entering storm drain systems, and which helps the district maintain regulatory compliance on those fronts. So with that, the recommendation for tonight is by motion, authorize the general manager to execute a purchase order to Pape Machinery in a total amount not to exceed $578,378.82 for the purchase of one VACOL AE 1213 hydro excavator.
Thank you. Questions or comments from the board?
To comment, these things are worth it. I mean, they're expensive, but they're worth it.
Thank you.
You know, I will note that on a recent city council agenda, they were approving new street sweeping equipment and fire engines. And I was a little shocked at the expense. The sweeper was 850,000. New fire engines are getting close to $1 million. We have a shortage of manufacturers in the United States for fire engines, as was noted, and for associated parts. And there's a long lead time for this type of equipment and for the hydro excavator as well. So I'm entirely supportive, and I hope we get the machinery in a timely manner.
Thank you.
Thank you, Director Sethy. Director Wee, do you have any comments?
And strong
I guess we-
support, the lead time would be of interest for the purchase of this.
Okay. Thank you, Director Weed. All right, with that, does any member of the public wish to address the board on this issue? If you have questions or comments for the board, please step up to the podium. I'm not seeing anybody. Can we confirm that there's nobody online? All right, then with that, do I have a motion with this item?
Director Gunther moves, I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Directors Akbari,
Aye.
Gunther,
Aye.
Sethy,
Aye.
Weed,
Aye.
and Huang.
Aye. With that, let's move on to item 5.6, please.
Thank you very much. Item 5.6 is authorization of agreement for as-needed well rehabilitation services. And this item will be covered tonight by our Acting Director of Water Resources, Ms. Ava Laser.
Thank you, Ms. Hidas. Honored to be here. Item 5.6, authorization of agreement for as-needed well rehabilitation services. The district owns 26 production wells, which are currently in service. In support of the proper maintenance and continued efficiency of the production wells, the district conducts a program that evaluates the condition of the production wells on an ongoing basis to rehabilitate 1 to 2 wells per year. Because this agreement includes both specialized technical services and maintenance repairs in public work, staff is asking the board to waive the competitive bidding requirements of Section D3 of the district's procurement policy. Authorization of this agreement provides staff with the ability to respond to well rehabilitation needs in a timely manner, but does not obligate the district to spend the full authorized amount. Adequate funding is included in the fiscal year 2025-26 and 2026-27 budget for this expenditure. Board approval of this agreement will assist the district in achieving its strategic plan goal 1.1, effectively manage and maintain our infrastructure to ensure reliability. Staff's recommendation: by motion 1, waive the competitive bidding requirements of Section D3 of the district's procurement policy. 2, authorize the general manager to enter into an agreement for as-needed well rehabilitation services with Eaton Drilling Company, LLC, for a 2-year base term not to exceed $175,000. And 3, authorize the general manager to execute up to 3 one-year option terms with Eaton Drilling Company, LLC, if the services are satisfactory to the district, in the amounts of $77,700, $80,400, and $83,200 respectively, for a potential agreement term of 5 years in an overall not to exceed amount of $416,300, which includes an allowance of approximately 3.5% per year for escalation.
Thank you for the presentation. Questions or comments from the board? Director Wee, any questions or comments?
None. No.
Okay. Any questions or comments from our members of the public? Oh, pardon me, Director Wee, I believe you say none?
Yes, I have no comment or question.
All right, thank you. Any questions or comments from our members of the public in attendance? If you wish to address board, step up to the podium. I'm not seeing any. All right, do I have a motion?
I'll move for approval of the staff recommendation on item 5.6. Second.
Roll call, please.
Directors Akbari,
Aye.
Gunther,
Aye.
Sethy,
Aye.
Weed,
Aye.
and Huang.
Aye. With that, let's move on to item 6.1, board committee reports. Any questions or comments from the board on the board committee reports?
No.
All right, any questions or comments from our members of the public on any of the committee reports? I am not seeing anybody. Okay. Then let's move on to item 6.2, operational reports. Any questions or comments from the board on 6.2 operational reports?
I have one. Are there any others here?
Go for it, Director Sethy.
Item 6.2.8, unfunded liability status report. I was hoping that Mr. Wunderlich could give us a little bit of a report back to the board on where we stand right now. We went through this in the Finance Committee. I think it's very important for all board members to understand where we are at this point.
Yeah, so the district's been working really hard since about 2009 to try to, and particularly around the last 10 years, to try to get fully funded on our pension obligations. We were at a low of 56% funded in 2009. As of June 30 of 2024, we are up to 82% funded. So we've been making good, steady progress. We started our more significant advanced funding in about 2017, at which point in time we were 68% funded. So we've closed about half the gap to full funding in that time. And it's actually harder to close the initial part of the gap because you're paying interest on more unfunded liability, right? So if you think about it like a mortgage, when you make your first mortgage payment at the beginning of 30 years, it's mostly interest. It's not until later on that you're paying mostly principal, to use that as an analogy. So we're making good progress. There's still more work to be done on our retiree medical program. That valuation is only formally done every 2 years. And so the numbers that are reported here are still a year and a half old. And so we would have made some progress in that time that's simply not reflected here. Later this fiscal year, our consulting actuary will prepare an updated valuation, and then we'll have updated numbers for this. As a super quick preview, and I'm sure tomorrow afternoon, once this is all posted, everybody will be running to the district website to check this out. But the Finance and Administration Committee will receive a presentation next Tuesday from our assigned senior actuary at the CalPERS system on the status of our pension investments. And so his presentation will be included in that packet for anybody that wants to take a look at it. And what you'll see in that is that we've made some additional progress since June 30 of 2024. And as we sit here today, we're actually closer to 88% funded with the contributions and investment returns of the last fiscal year.
Yeah, and I want to thank everybody on the board that's been active since I've been on the board for making the commitment to fund these OPEB liabilities, because we were at a really low point after the 2008-2010 recession. And it's a very important commitment that I don't think the community really appreciates, because it's an investment in our future cost avoidance. And it's important for our employees as well that they recognize that we as a district have made a commitment to them and their safety, their retirement benefits, things like that. So I'm really pleased with the progress that we've made. And Director Weed and I have, I think, been very important contributors to steering where we're going on the Finance Committee over the years. So thank you. Thank you to the finance staff.
Okay, Director Weed.
Yes, again, kudos to staff for bringing this back. For those who have the memory, we were well over 100% back in the early 2000s. Based on that, we were comfortable in giving a 2.5% at age 55 for our employees, so they're lucrative the salary benefit, which I have no problem with. Trouble was 2008 came along and we plunged to about 50% funded. My fear is that the economy is currently getting more at risk of a major collapse, and the board has to make a decision. We currently have the most aggressive of 3 plans with CalPERS on OPEB. And I would suggest we should consider a more conservative strategy in the near term. We will not have an actuarial report for another year, but when the majority of the national domestic investment is in AI, larger than any other, larger, that's the majority. It is, without AI, we'd be in real dire straits. That is about, that's the elements of a bubble, and bubbles can be popped. So consideration, decision we're going to have to make, and it may require even additional commitments from the board to meet the 2032 goal, which we should easily make in the current strategy, but a little more money if we lower the discount rate. So thank you.
Thank you, Director Weed.
So just to make it clear, folks in the room here, we have essentially three different investment choices: an aggressive one, middle one, and a very conservative route. And what Director Weed and I have been suggesting in our Finance Committee meetings is that we move off the aggressive path as we're getting closer to full funding and go to the most conservative investment strategy, which we think offers much more safety to the district moving forward and would offer preservation of the capital that we've earned in our OPEC account with great risk to the economy right now. So that's why we're suggesting the most conservative route for our investments moving forward.
And thank you for that comment, but I'm going to cut it off there because we're
Okay.
kind of skirting the line here
Yeah.
a little bit.
Okay.
If I could just jump in, Director Weed, because of the requirements of AB 2449, can you lower your camera? All we can see is the top of your head. So if you can lower the camera because of the requirement, perfect.
I
Thank you
stood up
so
to make the
much.
Pledge of Allegiance, and I didn't readjust after I sat down. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, any questions?
I actually had a question regarding some comments made by previous directors, but should I save that for directors' comments?
Actually, I think it's okay because we do have unfunded liability status report on the agenda. We actually have an investment portfolio performance review as well. So I think you could ask the question because a combination of what's on the agenda, it's okay.
Got it. So I actually share some of the skepticism of AI and also feel like it would not hurt us to at least consider moving to a more conservative approach. In terms of process for that, can someone just walk me through, would that come to the full board or would it first originate in Finance Committee, and how long would it take for us to actually change?
Yeah, so if we were to make a change, which I'll say at this point, in a discussion in a recent committee meeting, what staff suggested is let's wait until we see our next formal OPEB valuation and then take a look at it and make a decision within that context. It could happen very quickly. In terms of our contract with CalPERS, I don't believe officially that any specific board action is required, and we could make the change very quickly. But I think given the discussion that's occurred at the board level, we would want to have a discussion with the board before proceeding with any change. Also, just to make sure for those in the audience that may not be as familiar with all of these funds, all we're talking about right now are the investments for the trust fund for our retiree medical benefits, which currently has around, I think, $60 million in it. That's where we have the option between the three strategies. We do not have any option about how the funds are invested that we put into the pension fund. So there's no flexibility with that, and that I think is about $300 million. So it's the bulk of our investments are on that side, and there's no flexibility with that.
I think I would be interested in reviewing that when we get our next report. Yeah, I wanted to at least put that.
I'm
put
in
that on the
agreement.
record. Thank you.
All right, any other questions or comments from the board on the operational reports? If not, any questions or comments from our members of the public on any of the operational reports? I see Mr. Abreu.
Just piling on the unfunded liability stuff. Looking back in the report, we heard what the report was. If you go to other government agencies, they'll throw out a number and they compare, oh, this is where we are, we're at 67% or whatever number it is. And look at where we were before, and they compare themselves to themselves. And they're always very proud of how great they're doing in every case. But, and I think I brought this up before here, was that if you look at one of these reports from the CalPERS or whatever, the average government agency is somewhere like 75% funded as of 2 years ago or a year ago. So you're better than average, and that means, you know, if you compare yourselves to everybody else, you're doing better than average. So, you know, I'm not. So you should deserve credit for being above average in this department, unlike some other agencies which are below average, but they pretend like they're above average.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from our members of the public? Seeing none, let's move on to 6.3 staff presentations. 6.3.1 is fiscal year 2024-25 investment portfolio performance review.
Yes, this is one of our annual items, I believe, and it's going to be introduced by Mr. John Wunderlich, our Director of Finance and Administration.
Great, thank you, Ms. Hidas. And I'm gonna invite Mr. Carlos Sublitas to the podium there. He's our primary representative from Chandler Asset Management, who is our third-party investment portfolio manager. And he will walk us through our performance the last fiscal year and, you know, kind of where things stand with our current investment funds.
Thank you, Mr. Wunderlich, and good evening, directors. I want to walk you through your investments and answer any questions you may have. As the presentation gets loaded up there, I just want to remind you that this is not your pension type investments, but rather these are your operating funds. You're all aware that your operating funds are governed by California Government Code. California Government Code is very restrictive in the way you're able to invest your money that you're using for operations. That is, you are restricted to the fixed income markets. You're an investor in the bond markets. You purchase bonds, which effectively means that you're lending money out and you get paid interest. You make a return from your investments primarily from interest income that comes in, rental of your money, and also the fair value of that cash flow due to you in the future when they pay you back principal, and the interest payments that are due to you can fluctuate in value depending on what other alternative investments there are available in the market. So when interest rates that are available in the markets move up and down, that moves the fair value of your portfolio around. Your strategy is within the scope of California Government Code, which is, as I said, very restrictive, and within the scope of the district's investment policy, your strategy is to enhance the interest income over the long run, as well as the fair value of the portfolio. When I show you the results, those will be combined into one number, and it's called the total return. That total return will include both of those components. I'm going to jump into the portfolio and then make my economic comments last. A couple of things that really characterized this last fiscal year. The first one was that there was definitely a recognition from staff that the district needed to build up more of its cash reserves and reduce the amount of funds that were kept in longer term investments. So there was a strong work and communication between staff and our firm, your investment advisor, to make sure that that money was made available when it was needed. And so that meant that there was a lot of cash flow analysis and work done on staff's part, and then communicating with us to strategically plan to make maturities available, to build up your cash balances, to have them available when you need it. That was a big theme of the year. On overall, it was successful because it made cash available. There were no losses incurred as a result of that. And also, it did impact the shorter portfolio. I'll get to that in a second. Not overall negatively. The returns were very strong, but we're now starting to build that back up to its targets, and I'll talk a little bit about that. The second thing that I want to highlight is that you do pursue a strategy where you have a portfolio of securities that tends to be managed to a shorter duration target. it tends to average somewhere around 1.7, 1.8 years. And you do have a longer duration portfolio where you can buy investments out beyond 5 years, which is generally the limit of code with some exceptions. And you meet the requirements for those exceptions. But you do buy out to 10 years in that longer portfolio. That portfolio, when I average it out, averages out somewhere around 3.5 years. And that portfolio has fared very well as interest rates have fallen over the course of the year. There's an inverse relationship in the bond markets between the direction of interest rates and the value of your holdings. When rates rise, your values fall, and vice versa. When rates fall, your values rise, and rates fell during the course of the year. So that longer portfolio did quite well. It was a very good strategic move on the district and staff's part to work with us to establish it. The third thing I would tell you is that obviously, as you look
Are we on
around
the
and
right slide right now?
we're still on the right slide. That's
Okay.
correct. And I'm going to move from that quickly from there. But the third thing that I want to just highlight is that as we've observed the economy has certainly moved more towards the end of the business cycle. It's sort of the growth phase is slowing down, and it's generally recognized that the Federal Reserve will need to stimulate the economy through lower interest rates, which may happen between now and the end of the year. So during those times, there tends to be a little more volatility. One of the things that we worked, again, with staff to do is to move more allocation to the safest investments, which are bonds from the United States Treasury. You'll see that in the holdings. Let's jump in there. This is the main portfolio, the shorter portfolio. It generally tends to average 1.7, 1.8 years. I'm looking at that middle column and then the second row, that duration. It's a risk measure for us. That's measured in years. That's the average. It's similar to the weighted average maturity. You can see that it's a little shorter than its benchmark. The benchmark represents the target. The benchmark is at 1.76. That's a little bit lower because through the course of the year, we collaborated with staff to make cash available out of that portfolio. But you can see that the portfolio, as of the fiscal year end, had a yield to maturity of 3.4. That was built up from investments that had been made over the last 3-4 years. So you still have bonds in there that were yielding much lower, but they're getting replaced with that market yield. If you look at the market yield, that's the yield you would earn on this portfolio had you purchased it on the date of this report, but it infers a reinvestment. Because if I get new money, I'm going to make it look like this portfolio, I can get somewhere around 4.07. So your reinvestments have been moving that yield higher and higher. And you can actually see what that looked like a year prior in the column on the right. That yield to maturity used to be 221 and it's now 314. This portfolio is valued at somewhere around $69 million. And as I stated, we recently, just working with staff, we're now rebuilding that to get back to its target now that staff has taken the steps to build the liquidity that they needed. The holdings you can see, I want to highlight just on the far left-hand side in the chart, you can see the gray bar at where the portfolio stood, how much you held in US Treasuries, about a third of the portfolio. That's now closer to half of the portfolio. And that's because that tends to be the safest. And for the amount of risk taken on to purchase those securities, the yield was very attractive, and you have those. We haven't been buying a lot in the federal agency space. These are government-sponsored enterprises. Historically, they provide a yield premium above Treasuries. That hasn't been the case in the last fiscal year. In fact, it hasn't been the case probably in the last decade. There's so much less issuance, and the demand for those is the same, that the yields are very tight to the Treasuries. Can't get paid much more. In fact, in some instances, you actually get paid more for the Treasury, even though the Treasury is considered safer. All things being equal, we like the safety of the Treasuries. And if we're going to take risks, we're going to need to get paid to take that risk. And we're just not getting paid there. The corporates have definitely been the better part of the story, a little bit less. And that's simply because of that cash flow process that we've been working through over the course of the year. I'm going to jump ahead and look at the returns. I mentioned to you that you make money from these portfolios in two ways: interest income and fair value appreciation. So if you look at the 12-month number, the return for this portfolio was 5.76. These are returns that we haven't seen in about 12 years in the United States fixed income markets. We just haven't seen rates this high. You're earning some very good income in your portfolio. I would say that close to 3/4 of that 5.76 number, it came from interest income alone through the course of the year. The remainder came from fair value appreciation. Obviously, you did better than the benchmark. Generally, you wouldn't if you don't look like the benchmark, and we're rebuilding you back to that. I wouldn't expect that you'd be ahead of it until we get back in line. Over the last 2 years, you averaged 5.32 as a fiscal year end, 5.32 per year versus the benchmark of 5.1. And you can see the yield. We're just charting the history of that yield. That yield is a forward-looking number based on the holdings in the portfolio, what you're due to earn. Well, every time there's a maturity or a reinvestment, well, that went higher and higher. I anticipate that with rates due to come down through the course of this year and have been coming down over the past year, I would anticipate that this line will taper off gradually. But as I said, it's a 1 3/4 year portfolio, so that will take some time to do that, which in a sense, in a dropping rate environment, it's a good thing. You hold on to your yield for a little bit longer. I mentioned to you that there's a longer term portfolio.
Well, can I note something?
Yes,
very
of course,
quickly?
Director.
It may not be obvious, but during the pandemic, when we're looking here at this chart, in the middle of the pandemic, we got down to close to zero interest rates. Mortgage rates were, extremely low, lowest in like 60 years or something. And we saw a spike in people buying homes during that period of time. That's tapered off now too, because interest rates have gone back up. And so we weren't earning as much during that pandemic period. It was a good time for a lot of people, though, that were trying to obtain some equity in the real estate markets and take advantage of that. Now we're at the other end, and we're the beneficiaries of interest rates going up. I did notice in the last 2 weeks that we went from, on the 10-year Treasury notes, we went from 4.7, I think, or 4.4 down to 4% today. So there's some anticipation of Fed reduction, maybe of quarter, half a point, something like that coming up.
And Director, you're absolutely right. I can address that right now. We have three major, I'll call them bullet points, that investors are having in their forefront. And I talked about these at Finance Committee last time. Number one is just an unknown related to where tariffs are going to leave us. The negative impacts to the economy from tariffs are an unknown, although it's generally anticipated that it's going to be a lesser impact than it was before. The second bullet point that I would point to would certainly be fiscal policy. Right now, fiscal policy, that just the way that the federal government spends its money right now is a little bit of a question mark. With one big beautiful bill passed, it's generally accepted that that bill increased the national debt and widened the budget deficit. And investors globally take that as a negative. And so how the United States government is going to pay for those cuts and things like that is through increased borrowing. And those increased borrowings have to come in at lower rates, and thus you see the pressure from the White House on the Federal Reserve to lower interest rates. That's a whole other story I can get into. We can talk about that all night. But in essence, it isn't just that. It's also that the economy is indeed, the data are weaker, and there's a bit of a slowdown. Employment is not as great as it was being touted. It's being revisited, and you've got to slow down, generally speaking. And for those reasons alone, the Federal Reserve is they're incented to lower interest rates, to ease financial conditions, to make it cheaper for investors and businesses to borrow money to continue the economy going. So that's why we think you'll see lower rates. That caused your investments to go up in value. You are correct in that you've been a beneficiary of that. And because you're a longer portfolio, you hold on to those yields that you achieved a few years ago that were higher. You're going to hang on to them for longer, which is part of why your value has gone up.
Let me make 2 quick points. Under the Biden administration, we had a real strong job growth in the country. Since Trump was elected, it's virtually zero, and the jobs report came out this past week. Quarter to quarter, it averages out to about zero growth in the job market. Number 2, to highlight what Director Weed was saying, which I think is the great risk to the economy, and I've talked to our finance director about this, is the fact that the amount of U.S. debt to our national income, or GDP, is at an extreme all-time high. We're talking about going back to the beginning, the foundation of our country. And this is, for me personally, a great worry. It's an irresponsibility on the part of Congress to be adding this amount of debt. Under President Clinton, we actually had a balanced budget by the end of his second term. And now we're just running up trillions of dollars in debt, far exceeding our capacity as an economy. And as Director Weed said, the only thing that's holding us up is 40%, 50% of all the investment in the country right now is going toward AI. So that's causing extreme valuations in the stock market, everything else. We are in a bubble, in my opinion. So thank you for the report here. I'm sorry that I had to stop you midterm, but I think there were a lot of important stories in the background here.
Absolutely. I'm going to jump ahead to the longer portfolio and give you some data on that. That portfolio is valued at $78.3 million as a fiscal year end. The portfolio duration, as you can see, second row in the middle column as a fiscal year end was 3.58. As I mentioned, it's about a 3.5-year portfolio. You do hold investments here that go as long as 10 years. It's slightly longer than the benchmark. Why? That was deliberate. We positioned it longer. There were no cash flows coming out of this portfolio, but we positioned it longer because we anticipated that rates would be falling through the course of the year. That's a call that we made back in the fall of 2023. And the markets have, with some volatility, have basically proven us correct. That's exactly what's happened. And that's part of why these returns are strong. The yield to maturity, not too different from the other. You're looking at 378, slightly higher. That, again, it's a timing issue because of the timing when you achieved or picked up some of the yields in that portfolio. You're reinvesting at around a 407. That has increased since we looked at that. High credit quality, a AA+. And again, a similar makeup, except that the investments that you can do beyond 5 years are limited by your policy to U.S. Treasuries, federal agencies, and municipal securities. When we buy those, we want really big, strong, and liquid issues that are widely held, and that's part of the liquidity structure of your portfolio. I'm going to jump ahead and look at the returns. For this one, I try to show you a corporate benchmark. I think there's a comment from Director Weed.
Yes, quick question. What is the credit rating of the United States, which is your U.S. Treasuries, and how does that relate to our benchmark?
The credit rating of the U.S. Treasury is a AA+ by all three rating agencies. It was Moody's and S&P who moved first several years ago, followed by Fitch in the last quarter. So they've been downgraded to AA+, and I think they're at a stable outlook now.
And our benchmark is now AA+.
How does that relate? How does that relate to your benchmark? Well, the primary benchmark in this portfolio is a 1 to 10 year Treasury and agency benchmark. So we use that as a benchmark because it's a similar duration, and the duration, as I said, is a risk measure, and that by far is the biggest determinant of risk and return. But because we also recognize that there are more than just treasuries and agencies in that portfolio, we also show you in comparison a government corporate benchmark. So that benchmark, similar duration, but it has of treasuries, agencies, and a little bit of corporates. The reason we use that as a secondary benchmark is because it's got some securities in there that you're not allowed to purchase. It does have some corporates that go beyond 5 years, and by code, you're not allowed to buy those. So it's an unfair comparison, but we want you to see it because it's at least it's a comparison with sectors in there.
Okay,
And of
thank
course,
you.
you had a great year. You beat all benchmarks, and that's primarily because of the diversification, and that was also because of the longer duration stand that you had. As you can see, the return was even stronger in this one because the longer you are in a falling rate environment, the more you appreciate in value. I would say that somewhere around 3/5 of that 695 that you achieved for the fiscal year probably came from interest income. The remainder came from fair value appreciation. It's a nice little tailwind. What you hold went up in value during the year. And that's great because we use that to reposition the portfolio, sometimes take a gain, sometimes take a slight loss and make it back in higher yield. It's an actively managed portfolio. We don't just buy and hold necessarily.
Okay.
This program has done quite well. Over the last 2 years, you averaged 551. And since we started this particular portfolio in 2022, we started this much later, working again with staff to time it correctly, because there was a time when discussing it, there was a desire operationally to have it, but the markets weren't in favor of it. So we worked very closely with staff to launch it. We did that in 2022 as rates were higher, and you got in at a very good time. You've been averaging about 350. That 350 encompasses a period of time when yields were below 1%. So you've done all right. What can I tell you? There's the yield history, and I think I'm going to wrap up with this one with these final comments. You had a very good fiscal year. The last 2 fiscal years have been quite good. it won't always be like this. As has been commented, there are some systemic risks right now in the economy. There's certainly a sense that we are at the tail end of the business cycle, and at some point you could see unless some measures are taken, you could see the economy take a slowdown and impact employment and impact the consumer and impact the business sector. That's yet to be seen. This portfolio, both these portfolios are designed for safety and liquidity. That's how you've built them. That's how code has had you build them. So thus far, they've performed as designed. We can't predict the future, but if I were to look into my crystal ball in the future, I would say that your returns probably won't be this strong in the coming year. We don't anticipate rates to fall to the bottom to almost zero like they did during the pandemic, or even the 12 years prior to the pandemic when rates stayed generally below 1%. We're not really foreseeing that, but we could see lower rates through the course of the next fiscal year. It'll mean that your portfolio, when we have reinvestments, will reset at a lower rate, which will bring down your returns just slightly. I'll stop there and take any other remaining questions you may have.
Questions or comments from the board?
I just want to thank Chandler Asset Management for taking care of our investments, consistently outperforming the benchmarks that we have identified that's important to us, and for working really well with our staff on a weekly basis. Thank you.
Thank you for the comments, Director. It is a pleasure to work with the district. Staff here is fantastic, very professional, very knowledgeable about what we do. They know how to leverage us. They know the resources we bring to the table, and they know how to use them. And this is a very important client for Chandler Asset Management. We're grateful to be working with you.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from our members of the public? No? All right. With that, then thank you. Great presentation, and thank you for all your work. All right, with that, item 6.4, General Manager's Report. I believe you have 3 items. Acting General Manager Hidas.
Yes, well, tonight we have 3 items that are on the agenda and 2 very short ones that are late additions. And the first one is related to the State Water Resources Control Board Kern County probationary hearing continuance that's scheduled for September 17th, 2025, item 6.4.1. And this one will be covered briefly by Acting Director of Water Resources, Ms. Ava Laser.
Thank you, Ms. Hidas. We wanted to provide a quick update to the board on the status of the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act proceedings related to the Kern County subbasin and the upcoming probationary hearing at the State Water Resources Control Board on September 17th. The hearing is of interest to the district due to our participation in the Semi-Tropic Groundwater Bank in Kern County. We've been providing regular updates at the Water Resources and Conservation Committee since the Kern County subbasin's groundwater sustainability plans were determined inadequate by DWR in March 2023. This triggered oversight of the basin to be moved from the Department of Water Resources to the State Water Board. The State Water Board held a hearing in February of this year to consider putting the basin in probationary status. At the time, the board voted to continue this hearing to September 17th to give the groundwater sustainability agencies, or GSAs, additional time to resolve the remaining deficiencies given that significant progress had been made. In June, the current GSAs submitted amended sustainability plans to the State Board, and in the recent State Board staff report published in advance of the September 17th hearing, Board staff stated that the amended plans substantially address the deficiencies previously identified. The staff report recommends that the subbasin return to DWR oversight if they can resolve 3 of the remaining more critical or urgent issues. These issues are not related to groundwater banking, pumping, or groundwater levels. It's our understanding that these deficiencies have either already been resolved or will be as part of the State Board's forthcoming resolution. ACWD staff team is optimistic that the September 17th hearing will result in the Kern subbasin being returned to regular DWR oversight, which would be good news, but staff will monitor the proceedings and report any updates back to the board. We plan to provide a more detailed update on the hearing's outcome at a future Water Resources and Conservation Committee meeting. This concludes my update.
Questions or comments from the board? Director Sethy.
Are you giving this information to the board in reference to our interest in semi-tropic? Is that why this is of importance?
That's correct.
It would be nice to make that connection clear.
Yes, Semi-Tropic is one of the groundwater sustainability agencies located in the Kern County subbasin, which is the topic of this update. That's correct. Sorry for missing that.
I see all the news headlines, but they fail to state that there are groundwater banks within that Kern County area that are covered by Sigma. And so I think we need to make it very clear. That's why we have an interest in this issue.
Good comment. I see Director Weed, you have your hands up.
Yes, Aqua has put out a bulletin asking members to attend the September 17th hearing on the issue of voluntary agreements. Is that a separate issue before the board on the 17th?
That would be a separate issue if it's on the agenda, and we didn't prepare an update for that tonight, but we can update later.
Several of us attended a Aqua Region 4 meeting in Manteca several months ago, in which Fish Bio, the leading environmental biotechnical company studying the Delta, argued that if fish counts were the intent, that neither unimpaired flows nor the voluntary agreements would address the concerns of the migrating fish because of the overwhelming presence of predation from the bass.
And I think that would be a great discussion if we have an item on voluntary agreement. I would like to bring us back to.
Well, that's why my
Sigma?
point was somehow it's unusual they'd have two separate major issues like this before state board, then they keep kicking things down. I wonder if their voluntary agreement issue is also implied in some of the current reviews by this board on the same date and the same meeting. So, and maybe
Getting
on
off
the
subject
same
here.
agenda.
Yep, thanks,
Thank you.
Director Weed. All right, any other comments from the board on this item? Any questions or comments for us from our member of the public? No? All right. Then moving on, next general manager's report.
Okay, the next general manager's report, 6.4.2, is participation in the Newark Days Parade and Information Fair. So the Newark Days Parade is happening at 10 a.m. on Saturday, September 20th. This year's theme is Celebrate the 70s. ACWD will have a decorated vehicle in the parade. You are invited to join and walk along. You are also all invited to join the Dignitaries Breakfast if you're in attendance at the adjacent library. That will be held from 8 a.m. to 9:30 a.m. Please, if you plan to attend, inform Renee if you haven't already. And also, if you're going to be there, please be at the parade staging area by 9:30 a.m. if you plan to walk in the parade, because we'll be getting ready to go. And staff will also be tabling a booth at the information fair the following day on Sunday, September 21st, from about noon till 4 p.m. And feel free to stop by the booth. We'll have lots of fun things happening there. And that's all for the Newark Days update. I can jump into the next one.
6.4.3, please.
All right, this is related to cancellation of September 25th, 2025 board workshop. You received an email from Ed on the 8th of this month that this workshop will not be needed. So please be sure to update your calendars. The updated board calendar, including updated details for the November workshop, was provided by the district secretary by email as well. And those are the items on the agenda. I have two quick items
Go
in
for it.
addition. So this is sort of just in, as reported by the board, or as reported to the board recently, the district helped coordinate a joint letter from the South Bay Aqueduct agencies to leadership in the legislature, local representatives, the Bay Area Caucus, and local and county leaders, expressing urgent support for the governor's budget trailer bill related to streamlining of the Delta Conveyance Project. Unfortunately, we received word yesterday that the bill has failed. In the words of the state water contractors, the bill was essentially caught up in the crush of high-profile legislative activities at the end of 2025 legislative session and will now need to be heard in the next legislative session. So our staff team plans to continue supporting efforts to advance the Delta Conveyance Project to a point where we can assess the business case it presents for our community. But that was that brief update. And last, we have one short update on an upcoming meeting that the district will be participating in. And I will turn that over to Mr. Awoke, Director of Engineering and Technical Services.
Thank you, Ms. Hidas. Good evening, board members and staff and community members. I wanted to inform the board that there is a council presentation on the Alvarado Niles Pipeline and Seismic Improvement Project. This is going to happen on September 23rd, starting at 7 p.m. We don't know the exact time, but we know it's on September 23rd, and when and if we go first, then that would be closer to 7 p.m. And we wanted to update the board as well as members of the community who may wish to attend this meeting. For those who want to attend the meeting in person, the address for City Hall is 34,009 Alvarado Niles Road in Union City, California, 94587. The content that will be shared with the council and the community will be very similar to the public information meeting we had in July of this year. I thought I would share that with the board, and if you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to respond.
Keeping with practice, I will not attend that meeting.
Say that again, I'm sorry.
Keeping with past practice, I will not attend that meeting.
Okay.
As a board member representing Union City, but the problem is I have a conflict with the project. I just live too close.
Yeah, thank you for the reminder. Thank you.
What is the date and time again?
7 p.m. The council meetings start at 7 p.m. in Union City.
I think it's
And
on
we're-
September 23rd.
What date?
Oh, September 23rd.
Okay. I might come in support.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any other general managers
I
report?
believe that concludes the reports unless there was anything late breaking from the team here. Not seeing any, then yes, we are
All
done.
right, and we'll just confirm one more time that we don't have any members of the public online.
No, there are no members of the.
All right, then let's move on to item 7, director's comments, reports on meeting attended, and agenda item request. We have quite a few report back from Director Sethy and Director Wee
Yeah,
on meeting attended.
Sorry, Mr. Awoke, I just realized I have a conflict on that date, so I won't be able to attend in support. I'll try to make my reports quickly. I'm going to tie 7.1 together with 7.4. The last 2 months, South Bay Engineers Club meetings were excellent. And the first was on all the projects that are now occurring in California as a result of the bipartisan Infrastructure Act that was passed to put in place overpasses and underpasses throughout our freeway system to help wildlife, both larger and smaller, get across these freeway barriers. And the civil engineering that's going into this is absolutely incredible. And there's a lot of environmental engineering that goes along with the civil engineering. And there's buco bucks in it. And the young engineers that are just graduating from college right now that want to do something that's of environmental importance and feel like they're contributing socially are getting involved in these very exciting projects. And we have 2 major ones underway near us. One is at Lexington Reservoir, and Valley Water's involved in that project. And there's another one 6 miles away on Highway 17 that is also upcoming. It was very exciting to see a whole group of young people in their 20s and 30s that are absolutely enthusiastic about their contribution to society here. Both Director Weed and I attended the most recent meeting, which was on the deconstruction of Anderson Reservoir by the project lead engineer. And she worked with Susan Howe at San Francisco, who was the lead engineer when we were working on the Calaveras project. And so she's got a lot of experience from San Francisco on the Calaveras project, and now she's in charge of the one down at Anderson Reservoir. And this project started in 2012. It finally went out for bid this month and is anticipated to be completed in 2032 with remaining work in 2033 before it becomes fully operational. Why that's important, it's the largest reservoir in the Valley water system, aside from depending upon San Luis Reservoir. And it's essentially the repeat of Calaveras, but down in Morgan Hill in South San Jose. And was a really fascinating presentation. There was a lot to learn there. I'm sorry some of our staff wasn't there because this truly was real water engineering that was being presented in quite some detail. So those are my two reports there. California Data Collaborative, again, I attended that with Director Weed. This was the 10-year anniversary. We started out with less than 40 people when John and I first attended, and now it's grown up to 400 people attending over 2 to 3 days. Had a nice chance to talk with Secretary Crowfoot and Joaquin Esquivel after their morning presentations, and sat in some really interesting sessions with some of our staff, Stephen Nizar, Stephanie Nevins, and Russell, I can't remember his last name.
Perry.
Russell Perry. And I will tell you, compared to last year when I was at the University of San Diego, a couple of things impressed me. I went around to the different vendors that were there that are trying to leverage off all these data opportunities. Some of the AI companies have tripled in size in 1 year. And many of these companies that were unfunded a year ago now have major venture capital investments of $20 to $100 million. I mean, this is really impressive stuff when you consider that they were just nascent baby startups 3-4 years ago. And now they're going up the S curve and really taking off. I also was very impressed with the presentations on applying AI to all of the different data fields that people are building on AMI data, which we're very interested in, on all the Sigma data that's being collected on different basins, all of the water well information that's now being collected under AI across the state, and all kinds of incredible analysis that's going on. But it is the sheer growth, and Director Weed mentioned it earlier, 40 to 50% of all the investment in the economy right now is going into AI. And when you start seeing companies that are really taking off like a rocket, it feels like the Energizer Bunny when I first got involved in Silicon Valley in my early 20s. So really good to see that. Last, the CSDA conference in Monterey. I attended a number of meetings, and I don't want to go into detail here, but I always go with the intention of finding money to save, where we can become more efficient, and where we can have cost savings. And I identified at least one in each area. I'm going to bring those to our finance committee next week. And good stuff there. And I also want to report on a couple of other things. I attended the state press conference up in Sacramento on Monday in support of Senator Ana Caballero from south of us here in Salinas and Monterey. SB 72, which she sponsored, was passed unanimously by both the state Senate and state Assembly, which is a rare occurrence to have that kind of bipartisan support. SB 72 is a water management bill that aims to modernize the California Water Plan, which Governor Newsom came up with 3 years ago, 2022. And codifies into law for the first time all of the necessary goals that are like in our climate change bill and air bills and things like that. So for the first time, we have codified what the goals are in the water management plan for the future in California. And I had a wonderful chance to talk for a couple of hours with Senator Caballero, who I know well, and other state senators and assembly members that were there, encouraging the governor to sign the bill. And I think we all need to really understand and study this bill. I'm hoping that it can be explained in more detail in the Water Management Committee. I think we need to all have some basic understanding of what the goals are. And I'm hoping that the full board will get a presentation on what we have to do in terms of playing a part in executing the plan. Last report. Yesterday, I attended the Alameda County Special Districts Association meeting up in Castro Valley. And we were meeting at the old headquarters of Castro Valley Sanitary District, which is quite small and deteriorating and vulnerable to a lot of theft from their field yard and stuff like that. They completed a brand new facility just about a mile away. And we got to tour the new facility. It had the new car smell. It was, and it's a triple lead building with all the most advanced things for all the employees and field people. And that was a terrific tour. And we heard a really nice presentation on all the advancements that BART is making in their system-wide, including now you don't need a Clipper card. You can just go use your credit card when you enter the gate. Lots of other improvements. And I am the key speaker at the November meeting, where I will be making a presentation on which I've worked out with the county assessor's office on a very detailed report for what Director Weed and I, let me backtrack here. Director Weed and I were elected as the representative and the alternate, John is the alternate, to the County of Alameda Countywide Oversight Board for the disillusionment of all the redevelopment agencies in the county. And the redevelopment agencies were taking monies from the special districts, school districts, hospital districts, others, community colleges. And now as the disillusionment is going on, monies are being returned back to the agencies. I've already given the report to Mr. Wunderlich. I think we got back about $2.2 million so far from the closure of redevelopment in Fremont, Newark, and Union City. So this will be the first time that all of the special districts in the county get a report from myself and John, hopefully he's there, on the contributions that I think that both of us have made on behalf of all the special districts in the county. And I'm looking forward to that. So that's my report on the last month.
Thank you, Paul. Director Weed, I believe you have the report back for the same 4 meetings.
It's much the same. First, South Bay Engineers Club and the presentation from Valley Water representative who had previously worked on the Calaveras Dam, now was with the Anderson Dam. I had not realized that the reason that they are rebuilding this dam, basically lowering it and rebuilding it to the same capacity, is that they added an electrical plant, relatively small, an 870 kilowatt, that brought them under FERC. And it was FERC control of the process that is requiring them to spend billions of dollars. They waited for years when they were first given the notice, asking the federal government to step in and take it over through the Corps of Engineers. But again, it's my understanding the Corps of Engineers looked at the potential damage and did not think there was enough damage to make it worth their while to spend federal monies to do this billion-dollar project. So this is part of the financial hit to Valley Water. Some of their financial pressures have been relieved since they pulled the plug on Pacheco. Next, California Data Summit, the 10th one. And it's growing in support. We had great staff support there. But to give you an idea of the disconnect, they were looking at using data for droughts, and their long-term drought was 1 year. Well, to be effective, it's 3 to 5 years. I was left with the impression that we had a solution in search of a problem. You've got all this data, you've got AI coming in, you've got all this money being pumped into AI, but no one has really defined where the constructive use of all of this information and data will be and go. That's one of the challenges our staff has as well. Next, the California Delta Authority, Design and Construction, as well as Finance. We've had just the failure to make the trailer bill is significant. We do not have 100% subscription to the tunnel, running at best 88%. We need 100%. And we also now, including ACWD and the Met and others, are developing off-ramps in January of 2027 that will allow them to leave it, making it even more difficult to keep operating if they can't complete the environmental work in time. It continues to be held up with numerous lawsuits. There's some more hearings this coming week, and I'm on the Delta Design and Construction Board of Directors, and they're encouraging people to come in and listen to the oral arguments at the California Court of Appeals. But they take time, and unfortunately, there have been some other decisions made and problems which put it even more at risk. So I think at best we have a 50-50 chance of seeing the tunnel built under these current circumstances. And that's my take. So thank you. Oh, and CSDA, California Special Districts Association Conference, I attended that in Monterey. It's an interesting organization. Every speaker is a motivational speaker, with the exception of an occasional politician. They had the state controller give one presentation, but all of the others, Joe Theismann and others, which are great speakers, but nothing of, but all promotional and ways to increase your personal enthusiasm. That is an unfortunate thing, and I feel it's reflected also in their failure to really, they are also many minor organizations. They're chasing different issues such as having, and some important issues, such as having special districts identified by the federal government along with cities and counties for direct federal aid. But it gets lost, much of it gets lost in the chat. My take, Director Sethy and I continue to attend many of these meetings, and I come away, I think, with a more concerned reaction. Thank you.
I am going to seriously disagree with Director Weed here, and he's heard from me. Yes, there are motivational speakers there, but I didn't go to any of those sessions purposefully. I'm not interested in that. What I am interested in are the sessions where you actually learn on hands things that can help your district. I will forward a couple of excellent presentations to for our PR staff that can be presented in the LICA committee, where I mean, there was so much to learn there on things, and I'm looking at the agenda right now on the meetings I attended. And I don't want to go into detail here because I can put this better into writing, what benefits there were from the sessions that I attended. And I will do that because I think it's of great service to the district to know exactly which sessions I attended and what I learned from them that are beneficial ideas for our district. So I will make that commitment rather than go through the slog here of everything that was on
I
the
will agree
agenda.
with Director Sethy that you do get some great idea nuggets and bits of information, but it appears to be, in my experience, the real value is talking to the other members and learning what's going on. I think they could improve the structure of their individual sessions. So, thank you.
Director Weed, perhaps I missed it, but can I have a clarification on item 7.1? Did you opine on the South Bay Engineering Club topic on the wildlife crossing?
He wasn't at that meeting.
He wasn't? Okay.
No.
Oh,
And that
sorry,
was
I
the
just saw.
Anderson Dam at the SBEC.
Yeah, no, you did. No, that was my bad. All right, any other directors' comments, agenda item requests? Seeing, hearing none, then let's move on to closed session. So item 8.1 is pursuant to California Government Code Section 54957.6, conference with labor negotiators, agency designated negotiators at Stevenson, Jonathan Wunderlich, Laura Hidas, Amy Reeve, and Stacy Q. But I believe Mr. Stevenson will not be joining us today. Employee organization is Operating Engineers Local 3 and the Alameda County Water District Operators Association. Item 8.2 is pursuant to California Government Code Section 54956.9 D2, conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, significant exposure to litigation, one potential case. So with that, at 7:17, the board will adjourn to our closed session. We'll move on to our closed session. All right, it's 9:10. The board has returned from closed session for item 8.1 pursuant to California Government Code Section 54957.6, conference with labor negotiators, agency designated negotiators at Stevenson, Jonathan Wunderlich, Laura Hidas, Amy Reeve, and Stacy Q. Employee organizations, Operating Engineers Local 3, and the Alameda County Water District Operators Association. Report back is directions given to the agency negotiators, representative negotiators?
Designated negotiator.
Designated negotiators. Thank you. See, I can't write. As far as item 8.2, pursuant to California Government Code Section 54956.9 D2, conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, significant exposure to litigation, one potential case, and the report back is no action taken. With that, I will say the meeting is adjourned at 9:11.
John, you go to sleep.
Oh, God, yes.